All right, so we're live. So, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Loc'd. I got Brian Ryan in again, and he has a lot of really cool information to share with everybody. So, uh, yeah. And the reason why this is late because I woke up late. so, um, yeah. All right, Brian. What's up, man?
Hey, how are you doing?
We're
Good to
good,
see you
man.
here, and glad we're able to do another live stream. I'm kind of excited.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, right. I know we were trying to do this a month ago, but then things happened, and then our schedules conflicted, and now we're able to do it now.
Hmm.
Um, just want to say that I'm appreciative of last live stream. Hopefully, we can continue to do this. I think it's maybe beneficial. It's beneficial for me, and hopefully to you, and hopefully to all your to our little group of listeners.
Yeah.
Um, I would just when I watch YouTube videos, I watch a lot of YouTube videos regarding fragrances, because I'm interested. But I am very confused as to a lot of the terms that they use. And right now, my voice is clear, right? It's you're picking up
It's
pretty
clear.
clear, right? So when I watch a lot of videos, they use a lot of words like shipra. They use words like there's ingredients like lavender. I didn't even know what lavender really was. I thought lavender was a flower. But then the way they use the term lavender in a lot of YouTube videos kind of confused me. So I wanted to kind of clarify that for myself so I can better appreciate fragrances in a way. So I picked up a lot of pointers here and there and some bits of pieces of knowledge and information. And I kind of, connected the dots a little bit for myself. And I had more information back then a month ago. We didn't do the live stream, and now we're doing it. But I didn't retain all that information, so I'll try to share whatever I still remember. I should have studied and kind of refreshed my memory past few days, but I was really busy this week. There was a lot of things going on this week. Got a new job, and we had one of the things I had to do was the other night, Thursday night, I actually broke my molar. I was eating dinner,
Oh,
and I cracked it in half eating dinner. So that was an issue. I had to do an emergency dental appointment in Los Angeles, so I had to drive down there. And the whole thing was, I was really tired Friday night. I was trying to maybe do some refresher, but anyway, I'm just rambling on. Um, I'm just here, with you. I'm glad to do it, but I'll try to give you as much shareable knowledge as possible. So anyway, that's it.
no, that's good, man. That's good. So you see, so you got a little chart there. You
Yeah.
want to talk about the wheel now, or you want to?
Well, okay. I mean, I want to kind of maybe address a few things first, and I'll show you the chart. Everybody's seen this wheel before. I mean, I kind of
Here, I'll blow
there's a
you up.
few wheels there. There's if you look it up on Google, you'll see a fragrance chart wheel, something similar to this. This is my own because not all of them are similar. They're very drastically different wheels out there, and I was kind of confused because they kind of put the categories in different areas depending on who made the wheel. Like somebody who's just some kind of journalist or somebody who's into fragrances or even like fragrance houses. They have their own wheel, but then it's completely different from other wheels that I've seen coming from other places. So I just kind of made my own that was best suited to how I can understand what this is. There's a couple websites that had a really good one, so I kind of taken this skeleton from a couple of those websites. I forgot what those websites were, but it's a little bit different. Um, but anyway, um, again, like you and I, we like chypres, we like fougères. It's a French term, and we hear the term all the time. I don't know what they are, right? Or what is a fougere? What is a chypre? I mean, for me, I have a sense chypre is some sort of a I don't know, something powdery, maybe something kind of like more of a feminine type of a scent that's floral.
Okay.
That's what I thought. But then if you look at somebody else and then what their explanation is completely different. Like they would say chypre is part of the fougere family. That's what they say. So I'm confused. I was like, okay, well, or they say fougere is part of the chypre family. So, and
Okay.
then another person would say, well, that they're totally distinct things or something like that. So, okay, well, I looked it up, and even the definitions for fougere and chypre are drastically different all over the place. It's all over the place. It's like I don't think anybody, even experts in the fragrance community, don't have a really a thumb on um, real defined clear terms for what they're working with. I mean, they do have a term for how they process things, how they manufacture things and what actual um, specimens are, like what kind of oil this is. This is an orange oil. This is a cedar oil. Those are true and those are factual. But then, like when they're talking about these categories that are kind of subjective, and then they put it into like a linear association or like a wheel, then it gets all
Hmm.
confusing. So, first thing I want to say is that I didn't know. I thought when they said orange scent, like let's say something has an orange scent, so it smells like orange juice. Okay, so we have
Okay.
like a fragrance that smells like orange, but then it has the floral aspect to it. So we get that kind of thing all the time. Those aren't actually, it's not actual juice in there, right? I thought that they actually put some sort of a orange kind of a juice, right?
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
that's it, but it's not. It's not the fruit. It's not. There's nothing in the fruit itself that is actually put into a fragrance or into some sort of a alcoholic solvent. And solvent means it's just a chemical, is a chemistry term for a substance that they put things into so that it can mix and react and so forth. Okay, so solvent, I'll
Okay.
use that term a lot, which is used in perfumery a lot.
Hmm.
But what they put into perfumes and alcohol are oils, right? So the orange scent is not actual juice. And I'm going to sound stupid because I'm pretty sure there are a lot of listeners who already know this and they're shaking their head like, okay, yeah, I mean, duh, there's no orange juice in perfumery. It's all oil. But again, I'm
Uh-huh.
just sharing what I learned just recently, you know,
Okay.
and and that the orange juice smell, which doesn't come from the oil itself, because orange oil rind, the rind has the oil that
Yeah.
itself smells a little medicinal, right? It's kind of
Yeah.
bitter
Still
smelling.
bitter.
It's bitter and zesty, right? So that's not where the orange juice smell comes from, but the orange juice smell comes from the aroma chemicals. So there's like artificial chemicals that chemists created, compounds that will smell like orange juice or orange. So that's called an accord. So
Okay.
when there's something that is kind of like a fantastical, like an artificial, like a, something that you conjure up in your head, but it's not actually coming from nature. Well, it comes from nature, but you can't put it into a perfume. That's called an accord, right? So if you're
Yeah.
talking about like a plastic accord, this has some sort of a plastic smell to it. It's not really plastic they put in there. It's a plastic accord created by aroma chemicals that chemists have created in the lab.
Hmm.
And they do little things here and there for a couple of years and they figure something out by accident or something like that. Or now, I mean, that's how it was 100 years ago. They would figure things out by accident. But um, now they have a whole set of smells and they can gradient off of those things and try to figure out new scents. So it's faster to create new things now. And then
Yeah. It's
the other,
all it's all like chemistry and
yeah,
stuff
it's
like
all
that. They got
chemistry.
all these bottles set up and the scale out, the weight. Mm.
Right, right. And I don't want to, okay, well, I won't go there. I was gonna say something else, but let me just keep moving on.
Okay.
Um, so there's that. So there's the process of the component of the fragrance that's an aroma chemical, right? So that's here. This is the aroma chemical, right? That's one of the compounds that creates a certain note or an accord. And
Okay.
usually when it's an aroma chemical, it's not a note. So in perfumery, a note is kind of specifying a natural ingredient, right? So sandalwood oil is a natural ingredient. that is not an aroma chemical. Well, there might be some chemicals that are naturally occurring in there, or sometimes an aroma chemical can be something where they extract that chemical out of a natural oil and use it somewhere else. So that still would be an aroma chemical, or you know, a chemical from a chemist, right? Rather than
Yeah.
just building a Lego block of you know artificial chemicals. So what was I saying? Okay, so the other aspect is we got the aroma chemicals for orange juice, but then the
Hmm.
floral aspect, the floral scent actually comes from a lot of times natural oils, right?
Okay.
So oils is probably the predominant component going into the substrate for a perfume, right? So we got like rose oil, you got jasmine oil, you got magnolia oil, so forth, lily of the valley, and these are um, they're fatty substances, right? So they're made of kind of like fats. So if you in chemistry, it's called lipids, right?
Yeah.
And if you really what I know from a long time ago is that uh, the flavor in foods actually come from the deposit of flavor in fats, right? So the reason why steak tastes so good is because the fat content in the steak is where the aroma and the flavor comes from
Yeah.
for the steak. So the fattier the steak is, the tastier and right.
Yep.
So that's kind of like what if you get a really lean protein only steak, it doesn't right. Probably has like it's just a stale taste or something like that. I don't know what I mean how to describe it. So
What, like a more leaner cut?
yeah, like a leaner cut that is just completely like a flank steak, like a shoulder cut or something, and then you know. So anyway, for natural oils that go into um, a a perfume, they can exist a long time in a perfume. They still have an expiration date, right? But
Of
it's longer
course.
than there's two things why they don't use sugars in a perfume. That's what this again. I may be wrong. So if anybody's listening, if they want to correct me, just let me know or put in a comment. Hey, if I'm wrong, because this is what I think is true. The reason why they don't use sugars that I think they don't use, I believe they don't use sugars in like orange juice and stuff like that in perfumery is because it's not stable, right? It's going to degrade pretty quickly in that perfume. So after a month, the whole thing's going to turn brown or it's just going to go bad.
It's
Or
gonna grow
another thing
mold.
is, yeah, its second thing is not going to mix well chemistry wise, right? So I guess for some reason the oils has a better ability to harmoniously mix in a perfume. Okay, so that's just historically how they make perfumes. So for the oils, there's three ways, I guess, for that I can think of, or I can that I've learned, not think of, but there's like a tincture, right? Tincture is kind of like a method. I guess they don't really use it in perfumery anymore, but they do mention it a lot. Like in the past, I think they did. The tincture is when they have a, let's say they put an orange rind into a some sort of a solvent. So the solvent will be alcohol, I guess. That's uh, pretty much what they use for a lot of these things. So they put ethanol and you put the orange rind in ethanol or something like that. Some sort of a alcoholic base. And then you just let it sit there for a day or two or a week or so forth like that. And then over time, that alcohol will grab onto all aroma the aroma chemicals, right? The naturally occurring aroma chemicals of the orange rind. And then they somehow process that, and that's a tincture. But they said tincture is kind of like it's not very, it's not very, it's
It'd
not
be like
very robust.
it'd be like what, like super concentrated? It'd be
It's not
super
super
concentrated.
concentrated.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's not super. Okay.
yeah, it's very weak. So tincture was used in the past a lot, I guess, because back then, right now we are concentrating on trying to make something that's very powerful and very robust and very concentrated. And there's more
Hmm.
EDPs these days, I think, compared to like in the 1930s and stuff like that, where they had a lot of just eau de colognes and stuff like that. I guess they were using a lot of tinctures and so forth. But the reason why those are very are great. How they made it is because everything was more natural. So tincture is a kind of a natural processing method. But you don't hear that much about tincture. The second thing is distillation for oils. So these three are for oils, right? And this is just the chemicals, right? So the second thing is distillation. Distillation would be the most predominant. It's the predominant method in perfumery. That's what I can for natural oils. Okay, I would say for the predominant component for the whole industry is aroma chemicals, right? They use just chemicals. If they want to just make a quick dollar, they just get a few aroma chemicals that smell like vanilla and rose and just put it together and sell it. Put a like a sexy person in front of it, like to represent it, and then and put some crazy name on it. It'll sell, right? You know, for $100 a bottle. So that's probably the predominant component. But for oils, distillation is the predominant method of producing oils. So distillation is where you get the orange rind and you put it in some kind of a I don't know. It's I guess it's alcohol, I think. But there's different kinds of distillation. So what distillation is that they actually heat it up so it boils.
Yep.
And when you're boiling it, there's something on the top that catches all of this um,
The
uh,
vapor.
yeah, the vapor and stuff like that, and they draw it into like beakers and flasks and so forth, and they process that, and then they get the oils, the essential oil. That's called an essential oil. So you get an orange essential oil from from doing a distillation. Okay,
Okay.
that's called an essential oil. So I hear the word essential oil all the time. So they do that for like sandalwood. They do that for lavender. All the big hit, the big players for just
Notes
that
and gin.
right that are just the the foundation for perfumes, right? Rose and so forth. So um, distillation is a I guess kind of relative to other things is more of a it's probably an expensive process. That's kind of what I read. And the third process is called the extraction, right? Extraction via a solvent,
Okay.
right? So that's the third method for getting an oil. And that's what they do is with like they get the forgot what they do. They get like a fat, like an animal fat, maybe, or like a neutral fat, and then they somehow integrate the natural the rind or the bark or whatever that they're using, the petals, and they use that solvent to do some sort of a extraction because I guess in terms of that particular petal or the bark, it's not good for distillation because distillation you have to heat it up. So certain flowers and certain plants they don't they don't fare well when they're heated up or boiled. So they got to use a more of a cold method. So extraction through through a fatty substance is what they do to get the oil out of it, right? And I don't know the whole process is a very is a very complicated process of taking the fat out and uh, they call it a concrete. And it's like a concrete, and then they do something, and then they get the oil out, and this and that and whatever. It's something to do in terms of chemistry. Okay,
Okay.
so what they produce from that is called absolute. Okay, so we
Okay.
hear that term all the time. Absolute. We got patchouli absolute, right? We got Mandarin absolute. I don't know. I'm just making it up, right?
Yeah.
So absolute is actually, you know what? I know you don't like neroli. So orange blossom, yeah, neroli. I don't really like it either, but it's sometimes you could add it for for some sort of effect. But neroli is considered to be I believe neroli is a essential oil, right? So
Okay.
they get the orange blossom plant, or the
Yeah.
orange blossom the leaves, and
Mhm.
then when they distill it, it's neroli. It's an
Okay.
essential oil neroli. If they do a concrete um, distillation using a fat and they get an absolute, it's called orange blossom.
Okay.
Okay, I believe that's what it is. It might be reversed. I'm sorry, just somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it was neroli that is an essential oil,
Hmm.
and orange blossom that is a absolute.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Okay.
it may be reversed, but the key thing to gather from this is that they say they smell a little different, right? So they say extraction will usually produce oil that is more robust, that is more potent. You know, it's got more depth to it. It's got more other kinds of facets to it. They
Okay.
say an essential oil is lighter, is pure smelling, it's not as deep, but it's more kind of the fundamental smell of that item. Okay.
Okay.
So whatever you want and whatever a manufacturer wants or a designer wants to have in their perfume, they'll use one or the other. But unfortunately, so here's the thing is that most designers won't go through distillation process or okay, for a designer like let's say not Tom Ford, but let's say kind of like I don't know, like a 1 million, right? I don't know who's the maker for
Uh,
1 million, right? So it's
Paco.
like a cheaper, yeah, Paco Rabanne, right?
Yeah.
So I know you like Paco Rabanne, so sorry if I'm gonna be pointing the finger at them a little bit. So let's use
Oh, you're
Paco Rabanne.
good.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm just kind of thinking because they're more on the designer aspect, right? So Paco
Yeah.
Rabanne, they're not making niche fragrances, right? So to me, a niche fragrance is expensive because they're using vendors who are processing items for them using distillation and solvent extraction. That's why it's expensive. Okay.
Yeah. There's a more involved process or
More involved
process.
process. The product is better,
Yep.
but the downside is that it's not an efficient process because they can only get a few ounces of something. I heard like if they are going to process rose oil, if they're going to get the rose oil essential oil through distillation, they have to process about 1,000 pounds of rose petals just to get like 2 ounces of rose oil. So they said rose oil is extremely expensive. So imagine Amouage using rose oil in their in their product. That's one of the components into making the niche fragrance very expensive. So
Yeah.
when I'm going to Paco Rabanne, I mean, he's a great designer and I like a lot of his fragrances, but I don't believe there's any um like the 1 million line. I don't think there's any true essential oils in there that are highly expensive, right? He's using mostly um aroma chemicals, right?
Yeah.
His products, which, they didn't say that aroma chemicals are a completely bad thing, right? I mean, there is a purpose for aroma chemicals in the perfumery world. There are sometimes there's no other choice but to use aroma chemicals for certain things. But
Yeah.
if you're just kind of throwing all the aroma chemicals in there because you want to just kind of make a perfume without going through the trouble of trying to make it more a better product, then you know people have an opinion about that, right? Even me, I'm not gonna really, unless it's on sale for 90% off or something like that on fragrance night,
Yeah.
then I'm gonna get it. So
I mean,
that's
sometimes I think, maybe they, especially with, like, with those big designer houses, I'm sure they budget. I'm sure there's a budget for, their fragrance line, and maybe they only have a certain allotted money to
correct.
go to, designing, and so they gotta make cuts somewhere, and I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure that's where they make the cut.
yeah, that's an excellent point. Yeah, I mean that I realized that just working in the corporate world, like when we're trying to do some sort of project, there's budgets involved, and we don't make those calls in the budget. The budget calls come from not
Higher
even
up.
executives, right? Even the higher ups, even the owner of the company, even the CEO, they don't even make the call. They're like, "Oh, I wish you guys could use this product," but somehow the bureaucracy of the company, if there's like the company's like 10,000 people, there's the marketing department, there's the auditing department, there's the analytical business analytical departments. They're all making these assumptions and analyses and reports that they have to follow suit with what their job description is, and then everybody's kind of bound, they're handcuffed to what the actual product is because they have to go through this bureaucratic process, right, a
Yeah.
bureaucratic flow chart in the company that even the CEO and Tom Ford, I'm just saying, let's say Tom Ford, a CEO, he can't dictate everything, you know? I mean, he just
Right.
has to kind of put his hands up and say, okay, you guys have to do it this way. Then, it's not really my mantra, but okay, or he might just exit out. He's just okay. Let's not even do this. So I'm thinking Tom's Ford. He may have like 50 fragrances out there that are just like locked up in his in the company's basement because he just put an X on it because he didn't like the product. This is what
Yeah.
the bureaucracy produced for us. We were handcuffed. We didn't have the right budget to get certain things. It didn't come out the right way. So I'm just putting an X on this fragrance. It's locked up. I'm never going to release it. So we
Now,
don't even know.
now, do you think he vetoes that, or do you think there's
Yeah.
maybe a process, or do you think he got the final say in it?
So I believe the owner can veto it unless the company is like a public company, right? So if it's not a private company, now we're going to business. So I don't know anything about business, but if it's a public company where there's a bunch of shareholders, then him as a chairperson, he's kind of as well. He has to go by the majority vote, right? So if they're
Yep.
thinking, hey, I want this to be released, okay, you know, he's gonna try to push back as much as possible. But if they have to eventually release it, he'll release it. So that's why over time, I guess certain companies will degrade in their product line because just as the company gets bigger and more bureaucratic, there's more processes involved, there's less efficiency, there's more of a focus on budgets and stuff like that. It's not the real personal focus of the CEO and the owner and so forth. Even the
Yeah.
people who are doing the decision making, I believe even they know, right? I wish it was done this way. It would be much prettier if we do it this way, but we have to do it this way because if I don't submit a report saying we got to do it this way, I'll get fired,
Yep.
you know? So everybody's scared and everybody's just doing their job. And that's not a bad thing. We have to be careful and do our job the proper way. That's why we go outside after work and start our hobby and then start our own company, right? Per
Exactly.
quote unquote. And then when somebody gets into our company and makes it bigger and we go public, then we get into that kind of uh, a loophole of, I mean, that the whole black hole of getting to the point where people judge us, because they're the armchair critics saying, these Brian Cho or Darius, Lock Sense
You're
is
good, bro.
right. Yeah, he's no longer passionate about for perfumes. He's just all about money, Lock Sense, he's just a sham, you know. He pretended to be he had all these locks, pretending to be like a guy who's really passionate about perfumes, but he's just about money. He's just about the bottom line. But that's not true because they're not there, right? I mean, they don't
Yeah.
know the headaches of running a company. Okay. So anyway, we kind of delved off into a different tangent.
It's all
Which,
good. It's all good.
yeah. So where were we? We were at the fact that most designers like Paco Rabanne will will not use distillation. They will
Yep.
not use solvents, uh, extraction to get
Exactly.
an absolute or to get an essential oil from
Hmm.
their third party vendors and so forth to make something because they're just like, okay, this is cheaper. This is 25 cents per ton as
Yeah.
opposed to $2,500 per ounce. Which way are they going to choose, right? So they might take, if they're going to market something for an essential oil that they have. Let's say they got a bottle of orange oil, orange rind oil, and then wow, this is $2,500. But then let's market this as orange oil absolute or something like that, because if you see a designer fragrance, if there's an absolute or essential oil used, they'll highly market that on their packaging. This
Yeah.
is absolute, but who knows?
Now,
Maybe. Huh?
now I have a question about that. Now, do you
Yeah.
think that now I don't know exactly who's in charge of the marketing, like like FCC, FDA, and stuff like that. Now,
Yeah.
do you think the companies, do you think that they actually kind of stretch the truth a little bit about that? Like, what if it's not really an absolute, but it's, actually an essential oil or something like that? Do you think that they would actually put that on the branding or maybe they'll stretch the truth as far as like putting like the note breakdown, you know, how the Neroli absolute, for example, but
Right.
it's not really absolute, something
Yeah.
else. But then how would we know that? We
Okay.
really don't,
So
you
that's a
know.
good question, and I kind of thought that too. But I'm relating this from my experience from working in a corporate background because I'm in
Okay.
technology where highly a lot of things are being audited all the time. I see auditors come in all the time. For every company I work at, they would put a war room in a conference. They would take a conference room or a couple of conference rooms and they set up war room and they're there for a month just auditing everything, just going through everything. They're going around asking questions. They're sending out questionnaires through emails. They're looking at all the numbers. They're talking to the finance CIO and stuff like that. They don't want to get the company doesn't want to get uh they don't want to be processed a fine. You know that these fines are very hefty fines. They're like, I mean, depending on how big the company is, they could go into the millions, right?
Ooh,
And not only
okay.
that, not only the fine, but the other issue is that they don't want to have the image of being audited and then um, being found out, right, about they were lying in the process. So every company, really, the companies that I've been at many companies. I have not been at one company where they're trying to, they're always trying to do the right thing. And of course, no company is perfect. There are mistakes made and they do get audited, but the intention was they try to do the right thing. So
Okay.
even if it means losing a few $1,000 here and there, the process is a little bit harder for them. They're not going to make as much profit, but they want to make sure that they go by the guidelines of the whatever the FDA or whatever the SOX compliancy. Um, you know, they have to go by it because they don't want to face the bigger risk of being fined and crumbling under investigation and it being in the public, right?
Mm-hmm.
So fragrance companies is a very highly monitored, uh, a regulated industry,
Industry.
right?
Okay.
So um, what they put so like in terms of like watches, right? So one of the things that is really huge is that they want to say the words made in Swiss made, right? So there is regulations on how to put the word Swiss made on a watch. So how do they do it? There are parameters like certain pieces in the watch, the case itself, the components inside the watch, they have to be a certain percentage assembled in the Switzerland, right?
Okay.
But the other thing is like 40% of the components can be made in China if it's possible. They could be made in Malaysia or whatever. They send it to Switzerland. They put the components together and they could put the word Swiss made and they're audited and then they pass the audit. They could put Swiss made because if
Okay.
anybody puts Swiss made and somebody finds out about it and they audit it, that company can just completely be shattered. Okay, so that's a
Okay.
very strict. So same thing with like I would believe absolutes, essential oils. You know the IFRA or the IRR, sorry, IRFA.
Yeah.
The there's a international regulatory committee that regulates certain components that are natural occurring chemicals that are put in perfumes or manufactured. They regulate them due to health concerns, right? They find studies that, let's say, coumarin. So coumarin is one of the uh, components that are naturally occurring in flowers and so forth that is highly toxic. They say it's highly toxic. If
Okay.
you if you're breathing coumarin like 24/7, like
Right.
high doses of coumarin, yes, you will get cancer. But because of those reports and their regulatory processes, they're kind of saying you cannot use this, you cannot use coumarin, or you can only use a few percentage of coumarin
Fair
in
enough.
your bottles, or else you're not going to be able to sell it. You cannot market it and you
Yeah.
cannot put it into the department stores. You cannot put it into the big retailers out there. Okay, you got to have a business license that allows you to put it in Neiman Marcus and Macy's and Nordstrom. You can't do that if you can't pass the IFRA. I'm sorry, I should have.
Standards.
Yeah, the standards for set by IFRA, and they change every year, and they're out there to kind of look out for us because a lot of people, I mean, the majority of the people are the 90% are like you and me. We don't get affected by oak moss. We don't
Yeah.
get affected by coumarin, but there is the 5% of people out there who may be sensitive to that
That note
actual component.
record. Yeah.
they can get hospitalized. So because of that, they have to cater to the lowest common denominator and say oak moss is eliminated from the natural components you put in perfume, because the 1% of population out there can actually get hurt by this. And then there are people out there saying, "Oh, they're so strict and they're hurting the artistry of perfumery." Well, there's still artistry in perfumery within the limitations of what you know I would say they're good people looking out for you. If you're just trying to avoid them, then it's just anarchy, right? It's just there's no organization in the world. You got to have some sort of limitation. But of course, there can be times when there's too much limitation, right? I could understand if IRFA goes overboard and say, "Hey, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. Next year, don't do vanilla. Next year, don't do tonka bean." Then what are you left with? You can't do anything, right? Then
Yeah,
that's a problem.
and I think that's like this that just goes for any government, there should be some there, because we
Yeah,
need some sort of structure, but as
yeah,
far as they don't go too far.
right.
I know that there are some companies out there like Emmanuel Cross that he doesn't comply with them, the IFRA. So
Okay.
he's kind
So
of he has a little bit more freedom with what he can do. Like he can use real oak moss or a certain percentage of real oak moss, um, and then that way, it's legit. Than
right.
getting a aroma chemical or some synthetically made
Yeah.
oak moss note that doesn't really. I mean, it smells close, but you can tell if you've ever smelled the real one versus the synthetic one. There's a difference there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course, you could totally tell the difference. Yeah. For the educated nose, they can tell the difference, right? For
Hmm.
the like my mom or my dad, they don't know the difference, right? It smells like orange. It smells like orange. If it's vanilla, it's vanilla.
Yeah,
But that's a good point, because I wanted to kind of address that as well. And I'm glad we banter well because of the fact that we're kind of on the same plane of thought here. But
yeah,
so I don't know who Emmanuel Cross is, but I'm kind of thinking he's a independent perfumer,
yeah.
right? Perfume chemist or
Hmm.
something like that, who makes his own product. So in the case of that kind of situation, so there's independents like not niche, because Amwaj, they have a license to sell natural occurring, very expensive essential oils and absolutes in their product at Neiman Marcus, at Saks Fifth, but you don't
Yep.
see Emil Cross at Saks Fifth. You don't
No.
see Burnikov at Saks Fifth. You don't see Slumber House at Saks Fifth, because they don't have a license. IFRA has already X'd them out of being able to sell at the big time retailers and
Yep.
marketing their product publicly. They have to go through independent channels because they have real oak moss. So like Bortnikov, I have kind of sampled Bortnikov a lot. His product does smell a little bit different. I have never smelled certain kind of facets of the perfume that are not in perfumes you see at the regulated places like Saks Fifth and Macy's. It's a little bit kind of a more of a exotic facets that you kind of a lot of people will shy away from. So
Hmm.
Bortnikov, Arish Door, those brands have oak moss they use, right? They have coumarin inside of it. They have certain things that may be toxic, and he doesn't sell other than like his own website,
Yeah.
or through word of mouth, because like there's the YouTube and the forums who
Yeah.
market him. So that's the case. But if he ever wants to go public, or if he ever wants to get involved with like Tom Ford buying him out, he has to change up all his formulations and
Yep.
take out coumarin. He has to take out oak moss and then put an aroma chemical in there
Yep.
in order to be able to be compliant, right? So, but there are highly educated chemists and people who are, involved in those processes where the reformulation is just not like they don't just mail it in. They're okay. Just put this aroma chemical and call it a day, right? They're not like that. They're actual like guys who are actually educated, hell more than I and you,
Yeah.
you and I, and uh, they're highly passionate about reformulation. So they'll do the best they can, but then the product will still come out a little bit subpar to the original product. But
Yeah.
you and I, we can smell the reformulated product, and there are a lot of cases where like Jubilation 25, you say it's completely watered down or something like that, and I
Oh,
understand it could be the case. right? Right? You say it doesn't. The project the longevity is not there anymore,
Yeah,
right?
and I think that they had came out with, it's like, it's a lesser percentage of oils that they used to use in their,
Right.
when they first came out with it. So yeah, I totally understand why it's watered down because they use less oil.
Yeah.
And
Lesser oil.
yeah, lesser oil concentration, and I'm not too sure why that is. I'm not too sure if, like we were talking about the IFRA, if they can't use a certain percentage of certain oils, and that's why they had to cut that down.
Right.
They didn't really want to, I guess, maybe use aroma chemicals or maybe use other synthetic notes to try to match it. So they probably just dropped the oil concentration. But then I was saying, like, if it's gonna be that bad, just axe it,
Right.
because
Active.
you're gonna be buying this at 150 if you can find it at a good price.
Uh,
And if especially if you smelled it previous to like a reformulation, then you're gonna be disappointed.
right. Right. But see, that's a really good point again. Okay. Again, you're bringing up some good points where I'm going to go off on a tangent again. So the thing is about here is that I agree with you. Jubilation 25 has been reformulated to the point where we don't know why the percentages have lowered by 3%. There might be some factors in there why they remove, let's say, I don't, coumarin is not in there, but let's just say coumarin has been removed. So that in effect lowers the percentage to, now it's 26% rather than 29%. Okay.
Yep.
So we don't know. They don't just go willy nilly, oh, let's make this 26% and then just relabel it. No, no. They're doing their math as much as possible. They're playing the game as much as possible, and then what the result is 26%. But
Yep.
now, if I smell Jubilation 25, I smell the newest Jubilation 25. Now, I'm not trying to go against you, but to me, again, remember when my last live stream I talked about how certain projection hours after a certain point, it doesn't really matter to me. So when I'm looking at, like, let's say this has been 3 hours of Jubilation 25 on my skin,
Yeah.
and I'm still able to kind of smell it on me, I just kind of just say, hey, I label this as a good projector, and it's similar to the original Jubilation 25 to me. There are other noses like you and let's say Robes 25, they're looking at this thing and Robes 28 or Robes 08. Sorry. So, so Robes 08 and you will be smelling, and you could actually discern the differences because you have different versions of Jubilation 25 on your shelf. So
Hmm.
to you, which is probably the 1% of 1% of the perfume buying population anyway, right? So a
Yeah.
person like me who is very strict in how I value quality, there may be a 90% of the people who don't even go by my standards. They go by just the first half an hour of a smell, and Jubilation 25 smells wonderfully blackberry the first half hour. They go,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to buy this. And it's the same as they don't even know there was an original version of Jubilation
Yeah.
25. Or if their analytical team says to the committee, hey, we can't sell this, let's axe it, they're going to be axed, right? They're going to be
Yeah.
like, we can't axe this because Jubilation 25 is a big moneymaker. Okay, we got to get it out there. There will be the 2% who don't like it. We'll lose that customer, but we got to keep that 90% of the base,
Customer base.
right?
Yeah.
And I understand. If I had a company, I'd do the same thing. You know, so I get your point, but we just kind of have to see from, I guess, from different angles that what can they do, right? Either
Yeah.
it's a double-edged sword for them, you know,
Yep.
and there's no way, there's no two ways around it because they can't have a let's just keep this director's cut of the movie. Yeah, well, movies you could do that, right? You could have the original formatted theatric version, and you have the director's cut. They can't have a director's cut of that original Jubilation 25, or else their company will get audited by
I
IFRA, right?
wish. Yeah. Yeah.
So they're handcuffed in many multiple ways. So now
Mm.
I appreciate that the businessmen running the company are savvy enough to be able to do their homework and get around all of these handcuffsness and do their work and still produce a decent product. I mean, I can't imagine how hard running a company is. I mean, that's just insane. I mean, I know a couple of people who just quit their business because they said that the running the business, if you're passionate about something, that's one thing. But
Yeah.
the actual business part, they said it's just it's just
Totally something else.
they couldn't handle it, so they just closed down, and I'm not talking about COVID or anything. I'm talking about
Yeah.
before and just business in nature, so going forward now, I don't know if that kind of set up for anything else, but actually now we understand the different kinds of ingredients, right? So
Yeah.
essential oils, absolutes, very expensive, not really used unless it's like a niche fragrance.
Mhm.
Um, and most of them are aroma chemicals, right?
Yeah.
So now I just kind of want to kind of go over, you know, here's the fragrance wheel.
I'll blow you up. Hold on.
Yeah. So the fragrance wheel is kind of like this. If you look it up on Google, you'll see similar ones like this. They're all colored and so forth, so it's better presented. And it's very hard for me to kind of you see if you see all the wording there. And I should have made it all up right side up rather than upside down because I have to turn this around like this. But the four main components of the fragrance wheel, as most people would say, is the floral, which there's the woody components, right? Woody notes family. You got the water. This is called the water family, right? The aquatic, not really aquatic, but aquatic is part of it, but the ozonic water. So you got the citrus, water, green, fruit. That's all part of the water category. But the fruit kind of goes into floral a little bit, okay? So they're not very distinct categories. They all kind of mesh into each other. And some fragrance wheels have them kind of combined in different ways, but they're kind of separated like this in general, right? So then you have the Orientals. They don't call them Oriental anymore. They call them amber. So to me, that's a little confusing because amber is a certain accord or note, but they also call this amber now because I guess due to PC reasons, they don't want to call anything Oriental anymore. I'm fine with it. You know, I'll just call it Oriental because I'm Asian. So I won't get in trouble for using the word Oriental. Okay, Oriental, Oriental woody. There's the woody, mossy, and dry woods. Okay, so this kind of wheel helps me understand the distinctions between certain things in a fragrance. When they get a fragrance that's labeled or is categorized as woody floral, right? That means there's some wood aspects combined with floral aspects as a predominant structure in that fragrance, right? Or something is a oriental floral or woody oriental. We hear that all the time, woody oriental. So there's an oriental and woody, and a lot of them are kind of like in between, like an oriental woody. So those are like depending on the location and the demographic and the trends. Certain kind of fragrances come out more than other types. You hardly ever see. Um, I guess there's a good combination of them, but in some years you would say there's less aquatic floral. I mean, these days you have a lot of oriental floral, oriental woody, woody oriental, because the oriental categories is very popular here in America right now. I guess. So it just depends, right?
Mhm.
So what is constituted within these segregated, or they're not segregated, but these general categories? Okay, well, we know citrus is like the orange oils. There's the lemons, the bergamots, the tangerines, the mandarins, and stuff like that. Limes. These are pretty easy to know, but again, these are a lot of essential oils, right? These are a lot of absolutes. But
Yep.
if you're looking at a designer, they're probably using aroma chemicals, right? To
Yep.
get that smell, to get that orange juice smell, the lemon smell. But if you get that rind lemon zest smell, it's probably an essential oil or something like that. But maybe they're not using it unless you're getting a niche, right?
Yep.
Might be a high level designer. Maybe it's like a Chanel or a Dior exclusive that has an actual essential oil for citrus inside their perfume, right? So Tom
Hmm.
Ford, that for one instance. Okay. Okay. Well, water is also something you kind of know. Water is kind of like the ozonics. There's the ambroxan, I guess, is one of them. Ambroxan is actually a photo. It's an aroma chemical, but
Yeah.
the you don't call it an aroma chemical once the product comes out. You don't call it ambroxan aroma chemical. You call it the ambroxan accord, or the ambroxan note, right? People say,
Yeah.
"Oh, there's a note of ambroxan here." Okay, so there's kind of like the aqua de Gios has a certain. There's got the salt kind of aspect. That salt is like an accord. You don't put actual salt in the perfume, as we know now. It's all oils, so you can't get an extraction of oil from salt. So there has to be created by some sort of aroma chemical for salt scent here. Okay, so this is kind of like fresh. These are kind of fresh type of scents, and the water. That's another thing. This area here is also termed fresh. Okay, so we have fresh or water um, uh, category. So it could
Yeah.
be a fresh oriental or fresh floral, something like that, right? Or fresh woody or oriental woody. Okay, let's go to the
I'll blow you up again.
Now, I'm sharing this because this is very exciting for me to share this with you, uh, Lock Sense. I mean, this helps me a lot to engage more on a YouTube video and to be able to discern what I'm actually hearing, right? So the fun thing is sometimes when you know this information a little bit more than the actual person who's talking about it, you could kind of pick out, oh, they made a mistake saying this or that, right? As before, I had no idea what he was saying was true or not, right? I just kind of took the person for granted, right? So that's one fun aspect. It's not, I mean, it just, I'm not saying that to boast or anything. I'm just saying that this is the matter of fact. Okay. So we got the, we got the greens, right? Now, greens is kind of confusing because there is another aspect here in Oriental that we have to segregate out. There's greens, aromatics, and Oriental woodies that are very similar in kind of like what we know about what a green is or what a aromatic is. But I'll talk about that later. But for what the category, how they categorize this, the green will be, first grass. We understand that. That's pretty intuitive. Second would be like mint leaves, right? So mint leaves are a green. We could say um, any kind of leaf, right? So if the leaf of a plant that contains a flower, it contains a bark, it contains a fruit, but the leaf is something that can be used where the oil or the aroma chemical can mimic that scent in a perfume. That is a green. Okay. So there may be, let's say, for example, a pomegranate that has a leaf. I don't think there is true, but just say, for example, pomegranate leaf that has a tincture that can be used in a fragrance that leaves out some sort of a camphoric. Camphorous means something that is sharp and cooling, right? So like your aquavelva has some camphorous effects to it. So the green is like that, right? Mint is very camphorous. So let's say the pomegranate leaf has a camphorous effect coming from their leaf, and you make an oil or an aroma chemical from it, and that will be considered green. But the actual fruit of pomegranate will be here in fruit, right? So the fruit will be like your strawberries, your mangoes. You got your all the stuff that's not a citrus, right? So if citrus is an essential oil can be processed from it because they all have a certain kind of a lipidy rind, a fatty rind to it, right? But apples, bananas, mangoes, for some chemical reason, as we know, I just don't know how to explain it. You and I understand. You can't really process an essential oil, I guess, from a strawberry. You can't process an essential oil from a mango, per se. So what do they use for fruit? I would say fruit would be mostly aroma chemicals. Okay, so if you
Okay.
have a strawberry scent there, you have a mango scent there. That's predominantly, I would say, safely. It's a safe bet to say it's an aroma chemical. Okay.
Oh, for sure.
Um, and just let me just interrupt me anytime you want to interrupt because I'm looking at this now, so I'm not looking at your face. I
Oh,
want
no,
to.
no, you good.
Okay. All right. So there now we go into the florals. So the florals kind of deviate away from the fruits and the greens. So the florals, as we know, rose, magnolia, gardenia, lily of the valley, jasmine. Actually, jasmine is considered something else. So jasmine, some people put it in florals because it's a flower, but other people will put jasmine in the oriental category. Okay. So
Yep.
I don't know how they make these distinctions, but I'm just kind of laying it out there. So the florals will be the rose oils, or it'll be the rose aroma chemical, right? Rose oil is so expensive that I'm sure all the 90% of the oil roses that you smell out there are that weird, that very heavy. Because rose is kind of like, to me, like in Asian food. I don't know if you eat a lot of Asian food, but if you put a tablespoon of sesame oil in your food, the whole
Mhm.
food smells like
Sesame
sesame
oil.
oil. So
Okay.
really, you gotta put like a teaspoon of it to kind of process or kind of make the food palatable or actually good.
Okay.
Too much of it will just overpower the whole food. So rose is the same way. Rose, to me, you could totally pick up rose, right? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
as soon as you smell it, polo green has some rose in it that I wish they would leave out. Or is it gardenia or magnolia in polo green?
Uh,
I don't know what it is.
I don't. I do. There's so many notes in
There's so
Polo.
many, yeah, there's so many floral notes in there. But I know rose is somewhat in there. But I know it's not a for a $60 fragrance. You're not going to get a rose oil in there, right?
Yeah.
So these are the distilled, the absolutes, okay, the florals. Now the soft florals, which was interesting to me, is that the soft florals are considered the powders, the powdery scent, that
Okay.
aldehydic. So somebody says this fragrance smells very aldehydic, right? Aldehydes is some sort of a chemical. It's like a chemical molecule
Yeah.
type type of a category, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what aldehydes are, but I just know that they produce a somewhat of a aldehydic scent or a powdery scent.
Now,
So
have you ever smelled fragrance with like a lot of aldehydes in it?
yeah,
You
yeah.
personally? Okay. So what do you think? And I'm sorry to deviate off, but
Mhm.
just for a second, because I just want to get your opinion on this. So what do aldehydes kind of smell like to you if you remember?
So for what I thought was an aldehydic perfume, okay? So these are usually I consider perfumes rather than cologne, right?
Okay.
Or fragrance that is for men. So it's a woman's fragrance. So it's called a perfume to me. I don't call a man's fragrance a perfume. So a woman's perfume, we have like the Dior's that you got is in a little vial like this. I maybe it's right here. I might be able to. Oops,
Okay.
I might be able to bring it up. Yeah, yeah, right here. Yeah. So, right. So this one here, this is like maybe 20 years old. I don't even know if it's. So this is like a Dior. I don't know
Oh,
what
that's
this is.
the drawer, right?
Oh, the Dior. Is it Dior?
Or yeah, I
Is it
think so. I
the
think yeah,
Dior? Dior, the Dior, something
yeah,
like that, right? I
yeah.
don't even see, but the label has come off of it. It's unrecognizable what the name is. But anyway, it smells different now because it's like 20 years old.
Okay.
Um, but this is kind of aldehydic to me. It's a very powdery. So I would say that the aspect is like if you looking at, I wouldn't consider it to be lipsticky, like a makeup smell, because that's coming from orris, right? There's iris and there's orris, and orris
Yeah,
root, like you mentioned. Those are kind of the ingredients that make something very makeup smelling or makeup bag lipstick smelling, but they
yeah,
do kind of in conjunction when they make something, usually those are together, right? You have the orris root along with your aldehydics, right? So I guess a lot of people get confused and say makeup lipsticky smell is an aldehyde or something like that. Or I would say aldehyde is just powdery to me. So I guess the powdery aspect is separate from the actual orris root, and the orris root smells lipsticky. I don't know. If somebody knows more than me about that, just kind of clarify that for us. That's what I think. So there's an orris root in conjunction with powdery notes, and that's
Hmm.
what makes makeup and this kind of perfume smell powdery, lipsticky, right? So that's what I consider aldehyde to me. I
Okay.
could be wrong, but that's just kind of like what the definition. Because I looked up aldehyde so many times on the internet, and I
Yeah.
even asked people at the Neiman Marcus. They don't know either. They all have their own definition. So what I could just come up with is aldehyde is just something that is in conjunction with powder and lipstick,
Okay.
and more of a woman's kind of a thing. I don't want to have a man's. I mean, there could be a men's cologne that has some aldehydic sides to it.
Facets in there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But not something that is predominantly for that for the top opening, right? Because once it dries down, you just got your musk and stuff like that. But
Exactly.
oh, by the way, I have my scent of the day, which is red hoba. So I got the red
Oh,
hoba
that's
right here, just like
okay.
that you have on the thumbnail there. So
Yeah, I wasn't sure because I know Red Hoba it came in like an older style bottle. I wasn't
yeah,
sure which
yeah,
bottle to
yeah.
use, the
Right,
new style, or old style.
right. A lot of the Zerjovs did come in the older style bottles. You know what? I like these newer bottles. I mean, the older style bottles, it's hard to find. I think they're the more kind of um, the more desired, I guess, by the fragrance community. I mean, you have more credibility and more street cred if you have older style Xerjoff bottle. If you're showing this, there'll be somebody on the YouTube channel say, "Hey, I have the older one. Look at this
Yeah.
bottle. You got the new one." I don't care. Okay, I like the new bottle. The new bottle look are just slam on. I think really, in my opinion, Xerjoff makes the absolute best presentations compared to anything else that I've seen.
Okay.
That's you know that I can get here locally or online. I mean, I don't see anything doing it better than Zurge out there. I mean, just the
Get the list.
presentation alone, I would say it's worth a good $60-$70 just for the presentation alone. I would say that's just to have it. I mean, just to
Yeah,
have this
well,
as a is it beautiful, right?
yep.
I could they could put water in there and I'll still pay $60-$70 for it. I'm just kidding. I'm my wife is there. I won't buy it if it's just a bottle. Okay, but um But
No, you're good.
what were we talking about? Okay, so
Uh,
aldehyde.
yeah,
And again, I'm overly chatty about it because I'm very excited to share this, but
it's all
just
good.
just interview. And we're almost at we're over the hour mark. Just let me know when you want to end. Again, this is the
Okay.
same issue we had last time. We
I
stopped at
know.
the hour.
It's because you got stuff to do, huh? So
No, no,
I
no.
got.
I'm ready to go at we have to start getting ready around 11:30 maybe. I mean, it really doesn't have to be morning. We could push it to early afternoon. But anyway, we shouldn't be more than another 20 minutes anyway, right?
Okay.
And we could just continue with another live stream another time. Um and just continue from there.
Okay.
Um so that's the thing that's really interesting about this is that I didn't know there were two separated the floral and the soft floral, right? The aldehydics, the
Mhm.
powder, and then the rose, the magnolias, the gardenias, the lily of the valleys. Okay, so that's kind of like where they would mesh because some of those flowers actually kind of give off a powdery scent anyway, so they would kind of flow into each other a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So they can make and also it really depends on the quality of the rose, right? The quality of the gardenia, where they get it from. So
Yeah.
in terms of like vanilla, right? Vanilla is considered something where you get from Madagascar or from Mexico, but they get vanilla from other places as well. So like also bergamot. Bergamot is mainly there's a Italian place where bergamot is grown. But that is the true bergamot. But now they don't get bergamot from there. They get bergamot from these other countries that are
That's
nowhere
frozen.
near. Yeah, they're nowhere near Italy. So we get most of the bergamot from there.
Okay.
So if an independent or a niche fragrance comes out with a bergamot fragrance that actually comes from Italy, it may smell a little bit different, right? So just the
Yeah.
quality differences in roses, in not only in just the different families of rose and families of vanilla out there, but also where it's coming from, the quality, how they process it, the actual the concentrations, right? So
Hmm.
the concentrations for, let's say, uh, like rose, they said rose and like white flowers. If you get the actual oil and you smell it, it smells really dirty
Yeah.
and it doesn't even smell like the flower, right? You're trying to smell jasmine. So jasmine sandbag is one of the um, essential oils that you hear about. And
Yep.
sandbag means there's two types of jasmine. I see if I can remember jasmine sandbag. We hear that all the time, which is means jasmine that is like cultivated at night or something like that.
Oh,
That's
okay.
why it's called Jambic Sambic. And then there's another one called Jasmic, like a Gendiflorum or Jasmine Gentiflorum or something like that. There's a different type of term that we don't hear about that is called grown during the day or cultivated during the day.
Okay.
So the ones that we always hear about Jasmine Sandbag is the one that's cultivated at night, or they do some processing at night, or how it's grown, or don't ask me. I don't know the details. So if you know Jasmine Sandbag,
Hmm.
is kind of a white flowerish, right? But if you smell jasmine up close, the actual oil is so concentrated. It smells like kind of a little bit dirty. Smells a
Yeah.
little like they say fecal or something like that because of the fact that there's components called there's a chemical in there called indole, right?
Yep.
So you know how we say this is indolic or this is
Yep.
a very indolic scent. It's because that flower will give off a somewhat of an animalic. The animalic term is used so much in the fragrance community. You will be hard pressed to find a YouTube video talking about a fragrance where they don't use the word animalic one time. And let's use a different term. I'm using the word animalic too. So animalic, right? I mean, it smells like fecal, right? I'm doing the same thing here. So indolic is like that because it's concentrated. So they say, like I told you last live stream, if I smell like this, you can smell the indolic, right? But if
Yeah.
you kind of just let it waft in the air, it's actually supposed to be something where, and I'll talk about this if we have time,
Okay.
about oud. Oud has that same effect where there is a kind of a subconscious thing going on where it actually allows you to think this is a beautiful scent. It's very floral and it's very the term is sexy and stuff like that. People kind of use these terms because they don't know how to really interpret it, but it's something that is conjuring up in their mind. Just like you say something tastes like chicken because you don't know how to define it, right? Something
Exactly.
tastes like strawberry because you don't know how to define it. But let's say you never taste a strawberry, you taste a strawberry, and you never tasted chicken before, you taste chicken. How do you describe it? You're like, well, I don't know what this is, but this is something.
Yeah.
Strawberry smells like strawberry, right?
Yep.
Chicken tastes like chicken. And there's nothing that can break down the actual definitions of what those are, right? Those are kind of like base form, uh, uh, elementary smells that you cannot define, right?
Yep.
Same thing
You'll
with,
try to define it based on your own
right,
experiences with
right.
whatever
Only
else.
based on your own experiences, right? You can't, but anything else you can sideline to that smell, uh uh referring to a strawberry or chicken, right?
Yep.
So same thing with the indoles and oud. They are their own kind of a elementary um fragrance to me, like a note to me. I cannot describe it for oud. And for indoles, it's the same way. People can't seem to understand how to describe it. There's no English term. Maybe there's a Greek term, maybe there's an Italian term.
Hmm.
But in terms of English, we don't know how to describe it. We just call it, subconscious, sexy, something like that. So indole is what creates that in a lavender sense. So the concentrations have to be correct. If the concentrations are a little bit off, you'll get the fecal and the barnyard kind of effect to it. So what was I getting at?
Uh. Oh,
That's the problem with live stream. You if you don't
sorry.
have a one.
I remember
But
we were talking about the it was you were talking about Indolic. Oh, you were gonna
right,
talk about Oud. You're gonna talk about
yeah,
Oud.
I'm gonna talk about oud later on. But anyway, I'll just keep going about floral. So, oh, I guess the thing about floral is that lavender. Okay, so that's one thing. Okay, so lavender. Now we're going to soft florals and florals, but we would think lavender is here. That's what I thought. I thought lavender was somewhere around here, but lavender is actually here in aromatics. Okay,
Okay.
so aromatics is considered to be uh, notes that you receive from certain seeds and berries and things that are kind of dried. So you got
Mhm.
thyme, you got rosemary, leaves, tiny leaves, dried, and then they're kind of used in cooking and stuff like that, right? So you got the tarragon and stuff like that. So lavender is actually considered one of those spices. It's not considered a floral. So
Oh,
most of the lavender comes from, I guess there's a different region where most of the lavender comes from for the perfumery industry. But I heard the top notch lavender is English lavender. Oh yeah, this is what I was trying to get at.
okay.
There's different types of quality of scent. So if you get one lavender and then you get another lavender and another scent, you could the lavender qualities can be different. It's not the same
Not
lavender
the same.
in all of the fragrances out there because different concentrations, different
Processing.
maceration, processing, different maceration times, different qualities, different regions, different aroma chemicals, stuff like that. So English lavender is supposed to be the top notch lavender. So if you have a English lavender in your fougere, that's gonna be like a $300 50 milliliter fougere, as
Yeah.
opposed to just a regular run of the mill lavender note in a fougere that might cost you $150, right? For
Yep.
100 mil. So lavender is considered to be an aromatic. So before in the aromatics, um, now not before, but in the aromatics. This used to be aromatic, but now there are circles that actually show this as fougere, right? Is considered fougere. So what is a fougere? I really don't know what a sheeper is still, but I put both of them down from what I can gather. But fougere is four components. There's got the bergamot, you got the lavender component, as we know. We got the oat moss base component, which in most cases is a aroma chemical. And we got this coumarin. So let me explain what coumarin is. So coumarin is a chemical that is coming from a lot of plants out there, and from tonka bean. So coumarin is a IFRA kind of regulated component that is supposed to be toxic in large amounts, and it smells like vanilla. So that's what gives tonka bean its smell of kind of
Okay.
a vanilla roasty smell.
Mhm.
But coumarin is kind of used, I guess, in a lot of places because of the fact that vanilla itself is very expensive. So if you get the vanilla bean from Mexico and a vanilla bean from Madagascar, if you're getting those vanillas, you're paying like out the nose for vanilla per ounce
Yep.
because those oils are just so damn expensive. So you're getting an aroma chemical for vanilla, which is, they say, the aroma chemical for vanilla is like your typical Dreyer's vanilla ice cream kind of a scent, right? So that
Okay.
is a typical American version of what you actually think in a cartoon when they say vanilla. That's what you get. You get the ice cream flavor vanilla, right? So
Yeah.
that's the aroma chemical. But the Madagascar vanillas, the Mexican vanilla essential or extracts and stuff like that, they're completely different. They're so deep and complicated. And they said that you could smell a lot of things in there. There's some woody things in there. There's a lot of kind of dirty things in there. But the whole note itself is very complicated and very beautiful. So it's not just a one color. There's
Yeah.
variety of colors in the actual vanilla. So coumarin is used as I guess coumarin is used from what I can gather in a lot of scents that need to replace vanilla. So if you see Fugeres, because Fugeres is a very highly marketed type of fragrance. So
Yeah.
fougere is considered a accord. It's not a note. So you got the
Yeah.
floral. So you got these kind of note families, right? These are note families because these are actual natural ingredients that go here. Orange, you got the rose, you got the cedar, but fougere is not an actual thing, right? It's just a kind of a conjured up thing. So it's
Yeah.
considered a an accord family, right?
Yeah.
So now they put this accord family will be gathering several. So like a woody floral is an accord family. This is a woody floral. This is a floral oriental or something. Those are accord families. So fougere would be considered one of those. This is a accord family that has a note of bergamot in it,
Okay.
however they get it, that has some lavender in it, however they get it, that has oak moss in it, and has vanilla. So most cases it'll be aroma chemical, but some of them will have coumarin or something like that. Sometimes the coumarin will naturally be occurring from the one of the flowers. So in a small sense. So sometimes they don't have to put they don't have, it kind of kills two birds with one stone because the
Yeah.
coumarin it covers the vanilla aspect coming from the flower, so they don't have to put vanilla in it. And it depends, right? So some companies will actually put vanilla scent in there, so then you smell too much vanilla, right?
Yeah.
It's this is why is this considered a fougere when it's just so vanilla-y? It smells like vanilla. You hear that a lot because maybe that company decided to put an
A little
extra
bit more.
aroma chemical in there when they knew that but maybe they didn't know that coumarin could just produce the vanilla scent anyway, right? So this is the it's grabbing from bergamot from fruit. I mean from citrus. It's
Yeah.
grabbing oak moss from the mossy. It's grabbing gardenia or whatever from floral, lavender from aromatic. So it's
Hmm.
grabbing from everywhere and making a family accord called the fougere.
Now, I I thought fougères was a term because like back in the day, right? Like I don't know how long ago, but I read it somewhere. I was reading something about a fougere, and I heard that they had came up with the name. They were trying to like you were saying, like it's a group of notes or it's a group of like just accords that make up like what a fougere is, right? So it's like I was reading that they made that name to kind of make like it was like a masculine term, but it would be like fragrances for men, like Fougere Barbershop. Uh, that's kind of what I thought a Fougere was. Like they had came up like way back in the day, they had came up with that name just to I guess it would be like a title for a certain group of fragrances marketed just strictly toward men. That's what I thought it was.
Yeah. So
I
I
don't know if you ever
remember.
heard that or
Yeah, that's just that's the kind of sound familiar from all the reading and listening I have done. So there's a vague familiarity there about what you said. But from what I can gather, again, everything is what I can gather. I've been
yeah,
saying what I can gather like 10 times this video. But fougere originally was a the term fougere wasn't I guess everybody knows this, but there's a Guerlain or like a Dior fragrance back in like the heyday, like a 1920s or 1930s. There was a fougere habitant or I don't know what the name is, but that was the first fougere, right? It was the actual name of a cologne or
okay,
a perfume for women, right? And
okay.
I don't know what the components of that fougere was, but then the fougere term, I guess that fragrance was such a mainstay at the time, and the people were so familiar with that name, they started using fougere because of the fact that if they're going to use fougere in their marketing, people will understand. Oh, it's fougere. Habitant uses that name fougere, right? If you're going to use a tissue box, but you say Kleenex, you understand what Kleenex is, right? But Kleenex
Yeah,
was a name for our company, not the actual Kleenex. It's a
okay.
tissue paper. So you call it Kleenex, but then people will buy Kleenex because that's what they're familiar with. So I guess over time, Fougere Habitat was such a mainstay at that time. Fougere kind of trickled down into the mainstream a little bit. So the average Joe who just smells perfumes and stuff like that, they know
Hmm.
what a Fougere is. So they're like, oh, you got to try this. They're like, uh, what is this? You know, they're, oh, this is kind of similar to Fougere or Habitant or whatever that was. And they're, oh,
Yeah.
I know Fougere or Habitant. They want to say, hey, you know, I'm part of the crowd. I understand what that is. So let me buy it. So I guess in terms of marketing, Fougere just started to explode in terms of its usage. And
Hmm.
then from there, like I said in earlier, the term has gotten so overused that now nobody really knows what
Yeah.
that term actually applies to. So everybody has their own kind of a definition about it, and even they're not clear. I'm not clear at all either. I'm just kind of give you what I
And
can connect the
what
dots
you
with.
could conjure up and
Yeah.
look up online and just read about.
For me, barbershop is an accord family, right? There's that family of barbershop scents. But I would say within the Fougere Accord family, you have a subsection of Fougere that is a barbershop. So I would say there's barbershops, there's like some feminine leaning fougères. There's other types of fougères that to me, like Tom Ford Beau de Jour, is not a barbershop to me. I know you may think our nose may be different there a little bit because I
Okay.
noticed that my nose picks up lavender differently from than other people. Like like for Naxos and for Beau de Jour, a lot of people love I love the lavender here. And for me, I cannot stand the lavender in Beau de Jour, and I cannot stand the lavender in Naxos. It smells very detergent like. So maybe it
Okay.
comes across differently for some people, but to me, um,
Now, do you think it's maybe do you think have you always now when you wear something that has lavender in it, does the lavender kind of do different things on your skin? Because I know for some people could maybe come off as like a little bit I don't know, weedy, like just it doesn't smell natural, or it kind of smells a little dirty, or
yeah,
is that your experience? Or with
yeah,
Tom Ford's Bordazor, you said it comes off as a little bit detergenty.
yeah, a little detergenty.
Okay,
Naxos, the lavender just kind of comes off a little bit detergenty there too. It comes up
okay.
a little bit, maybe a little bit artificial, like you mentioned. Um,
Now I wonder if in Tom Ford's Bordazor, and then in that other fragrance that you mentioned, like you had said that, or like Naxos, right? That it had comes off as a little bit a detergency. I wonder if they're using maybe the same lavender, or maybe they have the same uh what's it called? They go to the same person for the
the
lavender,
same
unless they're
sources for the lavender. It may be completely different because that you know, Xerjoff is an Italian company, right? So they're based in Italy, as opposed to Tom Ford. Now they're owned by Estee Lauder, right? So Estee Lauder is a right American company, so they
I
would yeah, I'm not sure, but I know it's a
mean,
big conglomerate. And Tom Ford is actually owned by Estee Lauder now, so there it's not
yeah,
Tom Ford making the decisions anymore. He's actually sold off that fragrance
yeah,
like,
brand.
cosmetics
Yep.
to Estee Lauder, so he has no control over that. But yeah, I would suspect that they do gather their lavender in different ways, cultivate it from different manufacturers and different third-party vendors, and then they go to their the buyers will go to their sources and get, you know, whatever. If some of the companies might be actually getting the product on a certain time of the calendar where the product is out, kind of expired, maybe. You know, if you go to the market and you see bananas that are all black, but they're
Yeah.
they're like 50, they're 50% off or something like that. You don't want to buy that, right? You want to go when the bananas are ripe. They're 69 cents per pound or something like that, and they're
Yeah.
green. Right? So
Yeah.
maybe the buyers, depending on who they are, what the designer and what the buying process and the people are,
Yeah.
they may be buying at different times of the year when the product is. They might be going to the same source. It may be XYZ vendor who's selling to Tom Ford in January when lavender is full bloom, and the maybe the product is in the most richest scent, and then Paco Rabanne will be going to lab that vendor XYZ in October when all the lavender fields are dead, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you never.
but do you think like when Tom Ford goes, like when it's in season and it's blooming and it's in good, but then Paco Rabanne might go a little bit later when it's not in season, but there's still the lavender there, but it's been sat for I don't know 3-4 months. Do you think it
Well,
could get to that point anyways? Because even if you extract the oil, I'm sure there's some I don't know, degradation of the oil Don't matter what process you use with that. I'm
Yeah.
sure it, like maceration or just you think it would get there. Uh, Obviously, it wouldn't get there as fast as Paco Rabanne went a couple months later, but I'm sure the Tom Ford would eventually get there eventually, but not necessarily in a sense where it would smell bad.
So that's a good point. But let me preface this by saying stating a disclaimer. We're just talking about what we're just kind of
Yeah,
imagining. This is not
yeah,
the truth. I'm not
no,
saying Tom Ford actually goes and get lavender in January and
yeah,
Paco. We don't know what their buying process is, and we don't even know. Okay, we're just two guys talking out of our mouths
yeah,
right now. But it's good to think these things. So let's just get that disclaimer out there so we don't get in trouble by Tom Ford, right? So or Paco Rabanne because I love Tom Ford, right? So Tom Ford won't be insulted by this video, and hopefully Paco Rabanne is not either. But I don't think they care about two little guys talking
yeah,
about. But anyway, so the thing about that point is that okay. So if you ever get a rose from, let's say your girlfriend gives you you give your girlfriend a rose from the
yeah,
florist, it's a rose, but in terms of its pure form, it degrades and wilts after 1 week, right? It depends on how you
yeah,
store it, right? It's not going to store. But if you get that rose and you process the oils and
hmm
pull out the oils, now you got all the roughage and the vegetation, throw that away. That's out. But now you got the essential oil in a certain extract or alcohol based, and it's kept in bottles and vials. Now the degradation process slows down, right? I mean, it's going to take about 5-10 years before the actual product expires, maybe about 10%. But in the first
okay,
year, yeah, as soon as they process it right away, I'm sure the essential oils and the extract absolutes are very stable that first year. But the thing is, if Paco Rabanne was getting the product like a wilted rose in
yeah,
October, but Tom Ford gets a full bloomed rose in
oh,
January, and then
yeah.
process those oils, it might come out differently, right?
Yeah, and maybe this is another thing. Maybe some companies or some brands, maybe they choose to wait. Maybe they don't want, you know, full bloom rose because that produces a different smell. Maybe they
Yeah,
want
yeah,
like a rose that is halfway
absolutely.
to its grave, you know what I mean, for that particular note or accord that they want or that specific smell or they
Yeah,
might have other notes and accords in the fragrance that might not meld well with fresh rose,
yeah,
maybe they want
yeah,
that
yeah. That's
zombie
a good
rose
point.
or something.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, that's exactly it could be. I mean, especially for niche or independent perfumer perfumery, they may like to like what's that Itat de Libre, all right, that
Yeah,
one
I just
a
I
house
just
that
call
they might be getting a lot of the garbage out there just to produce a garbage a perfume and call it. They have one that's called what, garbage,
I
right? Or
am
is it called?
trash. I am
Huh?
trash. It's
I am
called I am
trash,
trash.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I could totally see like one of those companies doing something like that. So you're right. It could definitely be something like that. But even that, I mean, I am trash. I'm sure they use the best quality ingredients in there, but they just call it I'm trash. But I don't. Yeah, but it's true. It could be. Who knows? Maybe they just get the oldest corianders or the oldest cardamoms, maybe because of. But then I think the industry will know, right? The industry knows that the dairy industry knows that milk is best the first 2 weeks and expires, but they know certain things
Like
uh,
whiskey and
like
bourbon.
whiskey and stuff. That industry knows that you got to age it, right? You can't buy it in the first 2 years. You got to wait till the fourth year, fifth year. So I guess over time, everybody's savvy as to when is the best time to get when, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, it's coming to an hour and a half point. I guess we're gonna have to do. I don't want to be creating
We're gonna have to
a
do a
loop
part
that.
2.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
So
before we wrap up, I just want to let me answer some of these comments. So, Miriam Suzanne, she said lots of love and respect and greetings from me in Amsterdam and the Netherlands. So she's out there in the Netherlands. If you're still watching right now, which I don't I don't really think you are, but if you are, thank you very much for the comment. Uh, I don't even want to try to pronounce the name, but what's up, man? He did a checkmate. He did a thumbs up and
Mhm.
checkmate. What's up, checkmate? Hope you're doing well, man. So, uh, yeah,
Checkmate is
Brian.
the guy who you thought was was a little kid. You're like,
You
hey
know,
kiddo,
the funny thing about that is, it's like I thought he was in high school. I thought he graduated high school, but it's so difficult to kind of tell everybody's age on here. You
yeah,
know, like I can't
yeah.
just click on the
No, that's
subscriber and
fine.
then find out the demographic and the age, and so it's kind of hard, especially if just the picture on the you know what I
Yeah,
mean? There's no picture, or if it's a cartoon character or something like that,
yeah,
and just how things are worded. And
right,
I think checkmate. He doesn't even live in the states. He
right,
lives in another country, so they have different terms. And he says
right.
varsity,
Varsity,
which I
yeah,
guess
which I didn't, yeah, I didn't get either. Yeah, but I mean, it might be something where varsity means something when
I
you're
think it's
working.
college.
Yeah,
I think it's college.
but he said he has a full time job, so maybe he
Yeah,
it's something that comes. Maybe that's like for us, like certification or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Trade.
if I've been certified, that means it sounds like I'm adult, right? So maybe
Yeah,
something like that. It's just a matter of terms and stuff like that. But yeah,
yeah,
I'm glad he's here. And I was just joking, by the way. I like kind of joking around on the comments
yeah.
sometimes.
No, you're good, man. Well, just stay stay
Okay.
real quick after stay in the studio. We'll talk for a little bit, but thank you everybody so much for watching. Thank you so much, Brian. We're definitely gonna have to do a part two
Yeah,
of the
definitely.
fragrance reel. So I think I'll name this the fragrance wheel. I think, right?
Yeah,
Because
whatever you want to call it.
I wasn't sure what to well, at least put in the description for
Yeah, you
everybody.
could say fragrance wheel, talked about the fragrance wheel, and then kind of like the industry, what we think is
Yeah,
happening in the industry, not actual facts. Just say our
opinions
our thoughts and
or
uneducated opinions about the fragrance industry, which
yeah,
in a sense was good, right? It was a positive. Not
it
like
was.
we're not bashing the industry. We're actually standing up for the industry. Maybe not in the most educated way, but that's what we're
Hey, I
doing.
mean, everybody got to start somewhere, right? We all got to start somewhere. So,
Yep.
all right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys later. Thank you, Brian, and just stay after real quick. So I'm gonna end it right now. Okay.